We are following developments out of Florida where the FBI served a search warrant at former President Trump's home, Mar-a-Lago. The New York Times reports the search was in part for presidential records that he took from the White House. Joining us now to talk more about this unprecedented event, Northwestern law professor Juliet Sorensen. Professor, thanks for being with us. First of all, let's talk about what the bar was that touched off this search. We don't know exactly what they were looking for, but Senator Durbin today said they had good reason. What got them going?
Well, you're right. We don't know because the affidavit that is filed when the FBI applies for a search warrant from a judge is typically filed under seal. So we don't have access to that affidavit. But what we do know as a matter of law is that the judge who issued the search warrant, who signed off on it, was evaluating that affidavit to determine whether or not there was probable cause that in the place that was being searched, that is to say the former president's home, there existed substantial evidence of specified criminal activity. And the affidavit would have to lay out the basis for why the agency thought it was in Mar-a-Lago and also what that specified criminal activity was.
When do you think the public would get a chance to understand the scope of that?
It's possible that the public won't understand the scope of that unless and until criminal charges are filed related to what was found during that search.
Well, whatever the documents are, is there a legal precedent for taking documents out of the White House and then into a private residence of a president?
There have been past incidents of classified documents being taken out of the White House on multiple occasions. What appears to be unprecedented is the execution of a search warrant at the personal residence of a former president of the United States.
Well, how much more exposed do you think the president is here? Leading up to this, there was suspicion, there was suggestion, and then an investigation. But now comes this real legal scrutiny, and I'm interested in where you think that this is all going to lead in terms of criminal responsibility, if any.
Yeah, there appear to be two open questions that may shine a light on the issue of criminal responsibility. The first question is what exactly those documents are. Are they the day's menu at the White House mess? That is to say, the White House cafeteria? I don't think so. What do they bear on? During those 4 tumultuous years of the Trump administration. The second question relates to who had knowledge of those documents and their existence at Mar-a-Lago. We do know that that a visit was paid to Mar-a-Lago by representatives of the National Archives to request the return of the documents. President Trump himself was not interviewed at that time, although he briefly said hello and was aware that that visit by representatives of the National Archives took place. So the question also becomes, is President Trump or his associates, are they knowingly withholding documents that have been specifically requested by the National Archives to be returned? So again, what's the nature of the documents themselves, and is somebody knowingly and intentionally withholding them or concealing them?
Professor, 30 seconds left here. Does the federal government have, do they need to come out and explain what the goal was here, as many Republicans have called for? The president himself saying, you know, that this was political and aimed at hurting a potential presidential candidate.
As a matter of law, they don't. They've made the showing that they need to make in the search warrant affidavit that was submitted and signed off on by a federal judge. As a matter of politics or policy, that may be a different question, but I would caution, as in any criminal investigation, there's a presumption of innocence that stays at all times with the subjects of the investigation.
Well, Northwestern law professor Juliet Sorensen, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.